Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there and welcome back. It is your friend Cesar Espino, and you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com. And you are at the You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Today, I have a special guest. Her name is Shannel Rivera. Hey, Shannel, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So before we dive in, I want to give our listeners a little bit of your background, and then we can jump into it. So Shannel, she has a Beauty and Hustle, was born as a company when the founder, Shannel Rivera, realized that there was a huge need for women empowerment. Shannel was working in her corporate job and realized that she needed to do something different. She actually worked for FedEx and quickly transformed her team there into a powerhouse team that was the number one in America. While FedEx, Shannel sought out empowerment and love from the beauty community online. It was during this time that Shannel created one of the top 100 most engaged Facebook groups, Beauty and Hustle. With Beauty and Hustle, Shannel has able to be a strong woman, but also able to embrace her femininity and help empower women across the world. So you've done a lot of great things when it comes down to just really empowering that feminine side of it. Yet it wasn't really, that wasn't the starting point. And I want to know about your background and how everything kind of led up to that.
Yeah, so I actually born and raised in Los Angeles, born into a very low income family, hardworking, but very low income, single mom, had 3 jobs. I actually shared a bunk bed with my sister in my grandma's living room, and it was, my grandma, my aunts, my uncle, like it was everybody in one house. And I always thought that that's how people lived. I didn't realize it until I got a little bit older that oh, some people have their own beds, and their own bedroom, right? So, but I don't ever feel like I was deprived, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that's how I grew up. And, I started really figuring out that I was different in elementary school because I was always sticking out like a sore thumb. Like no matter where I was or what I was doing, I was always mislabeled at that point in when I was younger as being like the rebel, right? Like, oh, she talks too much.
Yeah.
She, she's rebellious. She doesn't want to listen. And it was because I was really advanced for my age. And honestly, things in elementary school was really boring to me. So I would challenge the process a lot. And as I grew older, I realized, oh, I'm not a rebel, I'm a leader. And that's kind of what that's taken me through life up until this point of understanding and respecting that rebellious side of me and turning it into a leader that helps other people kind of tap into that too.
Yeah, right. And so it was through your high school years or through your elementary years that you realized that there was more to you than just kind of following this process that everybody, we're kind of, I won't say a victim, we're living in that process and we just don't know any different. So it was through that journey that you just realized like, man, there's something more for me than just sticking to the program?
Yeah. So elementary school tested me a lot, and I didn't learn how to embrace that yet. And in middle school, I actually fell into gang life, hanging out in South Central LA with, some of the most notorious gang members. Again, didn't realizing, oh, this isn't normal that you have friends that are in the Mexican mafia. Like, I didn't realize that. But I did realize that in that gang mentality, right, in middle school, that my leadership qualities were respected, that, I could challenge the process. I could show up. I could be a tough guy, and quickly, obviously, that lifestyle is not easily sustainable. And so actually what happened in high school is I started cheerleading. I started competing, dancing, like competitive dance. And it was so regimented, almost like boot camp style, almost like military style, that I wasn't the boss, but I was still in charge. So I had more of a structure. And through cheerleading, I actually learned, oh, okay, I need to not just go off the deep end with my rebellious side, but actually tap into it. And it's through cheerleading that I really learned how to become a really servant leader and how to use all of those qualities, that were basically built into me, but I learned how to use them in the proper ways instead of just going off the deep end, and so that's kind of that progress. And then once I left high school, again, I kind of lost my footing a little bit because I didn't have that regimented scheduled thing all of the time. And what I ended up doing was just, through work, starting to build and wanting to, be at work all the time. I turned into a workaholic since the age of 16, just work, because if I wasn't working, I was going off the deep end in other ways, right? So I needed to just stay focused, keep my head down, and do something productive with my time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And I'm interested to know, like, what led you to probably fall into the wrong hands or get into gangs or any of that stuff? Because a lot of times that, some people might go into something like that and then they get stuck, right? Obviously, that's not the case with you, which is, I think, why this is even more powerful, because that's what we want to be able to empower men or women alike, that a particular situation or circumstance should not define who you are, right? Nevertheless, though, what was it for you that led you to not following, maybe a more positive road?
Yeah, it was really not. It was really not understanding, like, the power that I had through my leadership abilities and how to actually display those. And it was also this deep down yearning inside of wanting to belong somewhere. I didn't even care where it was. I just wanted to belong to people, right? I wanted my people. And I felt like through elementary school and going into middle school, I never felt like I fit in. Like, they all bored me to death. Like, I wasn't interested in what they were doing. And so it was that sense of community and belonging that I longed for so desperately. And, if you grow up in LA, South Central LA was, maybe 30 blocks south of my house. So you start to find, that regardless of what anyone thinks, people that are in the gang community, it really is a community. It's a family. And I longed for that. And so I found a lot of comfort with that. Even though it was a dangerous situation, it never scared me because I always felt like I belonged there. But that's definitely what pushed me to hanging out in that crowd and kind of driving out of my way to get to South Central and kind of, hanging out with those guys.
No, and I can definitely see that. I mean, and I think a lot of times people are looking for, like you said, that community, that people involvement. And so I can also see why, from that perspective, you decided to go into cheerleading, because again, you're kind of a sense of a group, a sense of, different people collaborating, whatever the case may be. And right or wrong, you're collaborating in some form, even when you were in a gang, right? Or part of that. So you're part of that community. And a lot of times, the other thing that I also see is that people tend to get lost with themselves, and therefore they're trying to seek validation someplace else to get that verification or whatever the case may be, right? So you obviously going through that. What was it that really was that tipping point and that aha moment that said, you know what, I am a leader. I need to take this and create something bigger? Was it at corporate, dealing with the bureaucracy, or seeing how women were maybe perhaps being seen different than men, or at which point did that happened?
Yeah, so I had a job for 10 years, and right before the recession hit in 2008, I quit. I had met this guy, and luckily that turned out okay. He's my husband now. So, but I met him, and I still, I mean, I had worked at this job for 10 years, and I still felt like I didn't belong. I was just always searching for this sense of belonging, and I had been there 10 years, and I didn't feel still like I belonged, so I quit. And I found my belonging with my husband, right? Again, still like searching for this community, even though it was just him and I.
Mhm.
And so eventually that grew really tiring to me. We were on the road, he was working, but I had lost everything that I had worked really hard for my whole life. And so I said, hey, I'm going to move back to LA. I'm not going to travel. And if this works out, great. And if you want to keep traveling, go for it. But we got to do something with ourselves. And he decided to quit his job and, move to LA with me. And I actually looked for jobs for him. So I looked for a job at FedEx for him. And I applied for a part-time position at FedEx for myself. And I got a call back the very next day for myself. And I thought, what do I know about FedEx? Absolutely nothing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I thought, this would be a really good way for me to not have to go back into the hospitality industry and all of that. So I interviewed, and they kept saying, you're way overqualified for this position. And I said, well, how long does it take to have your job? The person that's interviewing me, they're like, oh, years. Oh. And so I remember calling, my husband, he was my boyfriend at the time, and going, it's a really crappy job they just offered me, but I'm going to take that lady's job in a year. And he was like, what? And so, I just kind of put my head down, and I quickly realized at FedEx in that moment, I realized, wow, there's a lot of things that are not being given to certain people because of the way they look, or because they're a woman versus a man. And I literally sat down, and I made notes and notes of where I wanted to go within FedEx, what I wanted to accomplish. And I literally woke up every day, and nothing was going to stop me, and within 1 year, I had my own store. And within 2 years of having a store, I became a district manager. And it was at that level. I kept, people are like, well, why do you want to be promoted? Is it for the money? And I've never been money driven. I said, no, because the more power you have, the more you can give it away, right? So I knew at that level, I could empower so many more people versus just being a store manager, right? And so that's what I was always gunning for, was to have this rank, this high title, so that I could have, hundreds of people underneath me that I could really empower.
Yeah, no, I love that. Being able to have more power to give it away. I think it's Zig Ziglar said, if you give enough people what they want, you will get whatever you want, right? And it's kind of like the same message there. What was your driving force, though, to go in there and call your husband and having that determination that I'm going to take that lady's job in a year? Like, because a lot of people go and they get jobs and they just stay there, and although they're trying to, they know they don't want to be in that position. They want to be able to grow out of that position. They don't necessarily have perhaps the drive or a lot of people say the why or the motivation. What was it for you?
Yeah, I felt a little bit responsible for asking, my boyfriend at the time to quit his 6-figure career. So I feel like a little bit of that. But honestly, Cesar, like deep down inside, I knew I was meant for more. And the older I've gotten, the more prevalent that has become. And so it was really in that moment that I stopped thinking about me, right? Like I started to realize, even the day one at FedEx, I started to realize my life is not about me. It's about everybody else that I can impact, that I can inspire, that I can teach, that I can, that I can give no nonsense criticism to, and they can take that and do with what they wish, right? So it was just this like aha moment of, I'm getting older, so I need to like figure out my life, so to speak. Yeah. But I know I wasn't just here to, ship boxes and make copies. So what was my purpose? And so I started digging really deep. And I realized it was impact. Like, I was put on this earth to create massive impact. And so I knew that the more power I had, the more power I had to create massive impact.
Yeah. How long were you at FedEx before you decided to take your leap of faith and do your own thing?
I was at FedEx for 7 years.
Okay.
And when I became a district manager, I thought I had made it, right? Like, I'm really big into manifestation. This is stuff that they don't teach you in the hood, but somehow I learned manifestation through
or even in school too. I mean,
they're not teaching you how to meditate or manifestation or visualize your dream. No one taught me that. I just kind of taught myself that. But after making it to this point, I thought, oh, as soon as I get to that marker, I'm going to feel so accomplished. And I actually went backwards. Like, I started to feel, wait a second, I just busted my ass. I was, I took my district from the very bottom to the top, and then I was number 3, then I was number 1, back to back. Like, I was doing all this stuff, and I was still being treated like a nobody, right? Like, and I'm not used to that, right? I mean, like I said, I like to belong, right? So it bothered me. I would walk into a room full of my peers, and it would be like, oh, we don't even know how you did that. Or my boss would say, oh, there was this contest or whatever. And we see that you were number 1 in the contest, but we're having our guys, investigate it to make sure none of your team cheated. And I'm like, first of all, I'm not even smart enough to cheat. Like, you know what I mean? And I have so much integrity. So when I got to that point, that was really my tipping point, because I had reached this milestone high and I felt like shit, right? Like, I felt like complete crap. And so I started Beauty and Hustle. It was supposed to be a makeup group. I started it overnight at my kitchen table crying, just like, why do I feel like this? I feel I should feel so, distinguished and amazing, right? And I didn't. I felt like crap. And so I started Beauty and Hustle, and overnight we had over 5,000 people asked to join. And now we're at 22,000 people. And we actually stopped taking people for like over a year because it became a lot, right? It was a lot to people. So that's how Beauty and Hustle was born, was because I felt like if I could reach this milestone in my career, I would finally belong, right? I would be at that place where I belonged, and it was successful, and it was lucrative, and there was money, right? And I got there and I was like, oh shit, these are not my people. Like, my team was my people, but my peers and everybody above me, not my people. So I set out to Facebook and I created my own group of an amazing community of my people. And it brought me so much joy. And so I started realizing that there could be a business built into it, and I started to monetize it almost immediately. And I did both of them. So I did like my side hustle of Beauty and Hustle. We sold hoodies, we sold tank tops, we created our own lipstick line. Like, we did all of this stuff, and I was still working, 70 hours a week, going back and forth. And I actually left 7 years. I came back from a trip that I had earned in Hawaii, and I had applied to do a lateral transfer to Vegas, right? I mean, I'm number 1 in the country. My team is happy. They love me. And I asked for a lateral transfer because we couldn't afford a house in LA, because LA houses are ridiculous. And they denied me. They told me no. And I was like, well, I already bought a house. Like, so I was not expecting for you to tell me no. And I remember it distinctly. Like, I told my mom, she's an accountant by trade, and she's the CFO for Beauty and Hustle. And I told my husband, I'm like, I'm quitting FedEx. And I was like, I said it, and I was ready for them to be like, bitch, are you crazy?
You're right.
And they both looked at me and they're like, yeah, it's time. And I about almost had a heart attack, right? Because I'm like, what? Here I am with this 6-figure career that I just busted my butt off for, but it just wasn't my place, And so after 7 years, I left. It was scary, but I felt so calm. I knew that I was going to be okay. And I've been gone for 3 years and running Beauty and Hustle, and I've never looked back. Like, I'm happy I left.
Yeah, and I was gonna say it's not easy to leave a company like FedEx or any. I come from the logistics industry too, so I can relate to a lot of that. And even for me, leaving my last job working for corporate news, Houston, which is a global freight forwarding company,
Yeah.
it was hard to leave a six-figure job, and I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, right? It's like, I know I don't enjoy this, or whatever the case may be. I know there's a different calling for me, yet this is good. This consistent paycheck per se is good. That over there is just a concept that I'm not even getting a dime for it, and I don't know if I want to take that challenge because I don't know what the outcome of that. And so that's where a lot of people get stuck, right? So you going through that, and a lot of the people that are listening to us, they probably are in this same place that you were. And as you said, even your own boys were telling you, like, you're crazy trying to leave your job. Like, who are you? Who do you think you are, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Yet you went through it. And so how do you prepare yourself for that? Or how do you fight through those battles that are going in your head, and those doubts and all that stuff? Like, what are some of the things that you did even through your transition to get you to where you're at?
Yeah. So the first thing that I always recommend to people is, I tested my theory. I was making my first year with Beauty and Hustle. We did 5 figures in like 6 months. And then the next year we did 6 figures, right? So I was making a decent paycheck from that, right? And kind of stashing it and reinvesting. I mean, I wasn't getting rich doing it. All that money was going back into photo shoots, branding, websites, the drill. But really, I think the number one thing is really testing your offer, right? Testing what it is that you're trying to do. Because I feel like all of us deep down inside, we know that we were meant for more, but we've lied to ourselves and we tell ourselves that this corporate job is the safe, right? And I say that in quotations, right?
Yeah.
It's our safe pick. Well, with what we're dealing right now in the world, that shit's not safe, right? I mean, granted, FedEx people are being deemed essential right now, but I mean, there's a lot of people that thought they had this safe, cushy job that either have been laid off, unfortunately, or hours are being cut back, or whatever. People are being asked to take pay cuts, which is all fine and good, but it just proves my point that nothing is safe. Leaving wasn't safe, but staying wasn't safe either, right? So that's the first thing, is to really test your offer. And the other three, the pieces that I teach to everybody is something that I call SAS, right? And SAS stands for strategy, authenticity, and soul. So making sure that you actually have a plan, right? It's not enough to just hope that something's going to work out. You really need to have a strategy behind it. Luckily for me, strategy is my number one strength. Like if you do Strength Finders, the book, right? I geek out on strategy. I don't look like it, but I'm all about like, oh, pull this lever. You can make more money in less time, right? I'm all about strategy. So really sitting down and jotting down a plan. The second thing comes to authenticity, right? And that's more than just showing up as yourself, but it's really about creating a brand that's super authentic to you. Because if you show up authentically, you can't lose. You're going to attract your soulmate people, right? Customers, clients, whoever it is that you're trying to bring. And you're going to repel a lot of people. That scared me at first, right? Some people are like, the girl in hot pink lipstick, that's your business coach. And my girls now are like, hell yeah, right?
Yeah, right.
It took me a second to figure that out. And the last piece is the soul piece. Like, you have to really be willing to get up and grind. Like, if you're trying to be an entrepreneur, or you're trying to leave your cushy job to, do your own thing, this is a grind. Like, anyone that sells you that fake laptop lifestyle, no. Some days are a lot easier than me going to corporate because I don't have to deal with nobody, right?
Right.
But this is a grind. But if your soul is into it and you're super passionate about what you do, it doesn't matter. Like, when I host women retreats, I can literally work 20 hours a day for 5-6 days in a row. And I'm on this like high, right? So it's a hard grind, but I don't care. I'm so excited. So I would say, really test your offer, make sure you have the strategy, and make sure you're showing up authentically to the marketplace, and make sure that your soul is really ready for that, right? And the other thing too is, it's not good enough to just write down your goals. You have to figure out, what does that goal do for you, right? So a lot of people say, oh, I want my own business because I want money. Well, what does that money do for you? Because that money does different things for everybody, right? So it's not enough to just try to manifest money or manifest a company to make money. Like for me, you know, that money allows me to have more quality time with my family, that I didn't have when I was at FedEx, even though the money was there, you know.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
really important to like really go there, go deep to figure out what it is that you really want.
Yeah, and I refer to that for me as what is my highest intention. You know, what am I planning to do with all of these things that I'm working on? What is that ultimate? You know, some people say your mission or your vision statement, whatever. I'm like, what is my highest intention that I'm trying to accomplish? And that was actually one of my next question was, you know, if you were to look at the things you're trying to accomplish, the things that you're trying to do, and you kind of already mentioned some of them. Is there anything else that you're working on in terms of your highest intention of giving back in what I call this journey, this life that we're in?
Yeah. So for me, I'm really at the point of expansion, right? The people that know me really know me. My girls inside of Beauty and Hustle, they know me, they love me, they trust me. I have people that have literally went from buying a tank top from me to showing up and spending a weekend retreat with me and everything in between. They've bought it all. They've watched all the lives, right? I've had people really grow with me. And so for me, I'm really at the point of expanding and getting more people in the world to know who I am so that I can create bigger impact. You know, I know that I was meant for more. And some people may say, well, you know, like 100,000 people follow you across all platforms. That's a lot. And for me, I feel like I'm just barely getting started.
Yeah.
I really want, you know, especially in the minority community, when I look at speakers, right? And I'm sure you can relate to this. When I look at people on stage, nobody looks like me. There's no Latinas that are really like, wow, you know, they're just out there. I want somebody to really represent the women of color in a big way and show them that you can come from poverty. You can, you know, make some really silly choices in your youth and still come out and be super powerful and have somebody to look at and go, if she can do it, I can do that too, you know? And I feel like for me growing up, that's what I've lacked. You know, I've been to actually like direct sales. So companies where it's an audience full of 15,000 women and every single speaker is a white man. And I'm just like, somebody needs to be, you know, and sometimes they're coming out and they're fabulous. And sometimes they're like, let's talk about mortgage. And I'm like, what? We're out like, it just, you know, they just talk about weird stuff. And I just want to expand and get more people in my realm so that I can help more people and that I can be of service to more people.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And do you do any public speaking now or any kind of events like that?
Yeah. So I had a lot of stuff on my calendar for this.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
That's kind of all up in the air, but I mean, I've recently spoke at Wonder Woman in Tech in Long Beach and Woman in Power X in Fort Lauderdale. So I've spoken on a bunch of different stages, primarily that I try to target ones that are more heavily, you know, women in the audience, because I feel like there's not a lot of advocates for us. On top of that too, I feel like the way that even other women speakers speak to women is in a very coddling nature, like a very nurturing nature, right? Like, oh, go get it. Like, it's always go get it. And I'm like, and how, like, nobody's teaching these women how, right? Like, give me some bullet points. That's great that I feel good, but unless I have actionable steps, now what do I do, Susan? Like, I feel great, you know? And so I feel like my approach is a lot more abrasive. And sometimes it kind of smacks women in the face a little bit, but then they go away and they're like, you know what though? Like, I have all of these notes of actual stuff I can do. So I speak on stages like that, and then I host my own events as well in Vegas.
Yeah, definitely. And so what is this? You have a 4-day women retreat, right? Give us a little bit of that. What does that entail?
Yeah, the retreats are my favorite thing ever. I feel like when people ask me about them, it's like talking about my new favorite little baby, right?
Yeah.
We've been doing the retreats for 2 years, and I love them so much. They're actually called Badass with SAS. SAS is the strategy, authenticity, and soul. And when I teach SAS online, we start with strategy and we go that way. In the retreats, we actually start with the soul piece, because what I've learned with working with thousands of women, is a lot of women specifically have a lot of baggage in the soul department, right? They feel guilty for wanting to work. They feel guilty for getting a nanny, or they, not everyone needs a nanny, but they feel guilty from being away from their family a little bit or whatever, or there's resentment in their relationships because of it. So we really dig deep into the soul piece of what is it that you want and why, right? Because if a lot of women will say, oh, well, I want more time with my kids. Great. Then you shouldn't be working 100 hours a week, right? Like, that's defeating the whole purpose.
Right.
So we start with the soul piece and we work backwards, and they leave with a business plan that for the next 3 months, they know exactly what they need to do to really up level, not just their business, but their home life too. Because I don't know about you, but for me, having a great business or a job or whatever, none of that matters if my family and my home life is in shambles, right?
Right.
So we really go really deep. We get pretty spiritual in these retreats, which I don't really go too deep in the online.
Yeah.
I feel like there's something magical about having 22 women. They all stay in this huge mansion that we rent out. It's kind of like this adult slumber party, but there's something really magical when you're kind of locked indoors with all of these people, and you start to break down walls and admit things that you normally would probably never talk about. So my clients like to say it's business mentoring meets life coaching, right? And it's really where they come and they figure out what is it that they want to do, and then we figure out how to get them a game plan for it. And they're my favorite things ever, and I can't wait for this quarantine to be over so we can get back.
Yeah, no, I bet. And one thing that just came to mind, and I want to get your opinion on this. I think that female, and probably more females more than men, and men alike, they always go through they play this victim role, right? I'm victimized by the society. I'm victimized because I'm a female, because I have to be a mother. I'm victimized because whatever the case may be, right? And it's like in neuro-linguistic programming, there's three elements, right? You have the victim, you have the perpetrator, and you have the rescuer. And sometimes you're in that cycle, that vicious cycle, and just keep going and going and going. And you got to be able to step out of that to be able to take your life to the next level. And obviously it seems, and I can see that for you, you are not in that cycle. You're definitely on the outside. What is one thing that you can tell, our listeners in terms of how to get out of that, how to get out of that victim mentality, right? Because even like right now we're going through, right? A lot of people say, well, the government or this or that, everybody's going through it the same. Yes, probably some people are getting impacted differently than the others, except everybody's going through the same thing. And so we have to not play that victim role and feel what can I do? What can I learn from here and do something different, right?
Yeah, I think there's two things. The first thing is you can either make excuses or you can make solutions, but you can't do both at the same time. So if you want to make excuses, right? And I always use weight loss as mine, because that's just me personally, one of my little, weights here, right? If I'm going to eat cheeseburgers, I'm just going to be happy with the weight that I'm at, and I'm not going to sit there and cry after I've eaten a cheeseburger, right? But I can either make a solution for that, or I can make an excuse, but I can't do both at the same time. So that's what I teach, my clients all of the time. The other thing too that has really changed my life is understanding that life is happening for us, not to us. And that everything that we're going through, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between, we get to experience that, right? We get to experience that. It's a honor and a privilege, even bad stuff, right? And so once you understand, like, and the most powerful conversation probably I've experienced at my retreats was, they're polar opposites, right? One came to the retreat going, oh, I don't think I really want to do this business anymore. I really want to be a better mom, but like, then I'm just a mom, right? And I have this other client who's a really powerful lawyer. She also has a side hustle. And at the last night of the retreat, we have this really intimate dinner that is my favorite part. And they go around, and the powerful lawyer says, it really pisses me off when you say you just are a mom, because and she goes, well, she was kind of taken aback, and I'm like, oh, where's this going? And the lawyer says, I can't get pregnant. And
Wow.
the lady who has just deemed herself as just a mom looks at this powerful badass. I mean, this lady is bad, right? They're both badasses in their own rights. But it was this aha moment for everybody there that there's a lot of things that we're getting to deal with, right? And that when you can change your mindset of, you know what, I grew up poor. That didn't happen to me. It happened for me so that I could learn how to teach others how to overcome that, right? But if you can change that mindset and understand that everything you deal with is an honor and a privilege, and I know it's hard, right?
Yeah.
Especially right now, people are listening, they're like, oh, whatever, girl. Like, I mean, I've been bankrupt. I've been broke as hell. I've been everything, right? I've been hanging out with the mafia. Like, I've done all of this crazy stuff, and I don't regret any of it. Like, I'm so thankful for all of those hard times, right? So I think it's really changing that mindset. And then really asking yourself in that moment, am I making a solution for this situation or am I making an excuse?
Yeah, no, I really love that. It definitely is not happening to you, it's happening for you. I love that. And then the other thing too is I think that anything that we're going through is a lesson, it's a educational experience. Whatever you went through in the past does not define your future. And just take whatever you had from there and know how to apply it to your life moving forward. What do you do on a day-to-day basis to put you in a positive set of mind and stay very active and energetic the way you are?
Yeah, so the first thing that I know people will roll their eyes at me for is I don't look at my phone for the first hour of my day. And it's so funny because my clients are like, well, I make all my money on Facebook. If I'm not there, I'm not making money. I'm like, Susan, that's how I make my money too, right? But what it does is it really allows for me to wake up and step into more of, this is my life. I'm in control. I'm not worried about Facebook or my clients or anybody. I got to take care of me. Specifically with women, we tend to, pour into everybody else, but we never let anybody pour into us, or we never fill up our own tea kettle, right? So we're just pouring from an empty tea kettle thinking that we're helping people, when in reality we need to recharge. So I don't look at my phone for the first hour, and I take a shower in the morning and I meditate for at least 30 minutes and really writing down what I'm thankful for and, starting off my day with gratitude. And let's just be honest, it's not always easy, right? Sometimes I'm rushing, or sometimes I've got 4 dogs, and sometimes it's just like mayhem over here, right? But really understanding that I'm in control, and that whatever this day is going to happen, I can control a majority of it. And everything that I can't control, I got to let it go, right? So I'm huge on meditation, and I'm huge on really understanding how grateful I am, even when I'm in a bad place, right? Because I've teeter-totter too, I'm human, right? But just coming from a place of gratitude and understanding really helps me show up for my clients in a bigger way.
Awesome. I love that. So meditate, shower, and don't look at your phone. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. Okay. And in terms of, so you primarily work with women. Have you ever done, or are you thinking of doing anything with men too, or is just really that's your focus just right now? That's your avatar.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously when I was at FedEx, my team was 50-50, right? And so I know that I impact men, and everything I teach from the business side, even from the more spiritual woo-woo side, can definitely be applied to men. I feel like the reason that I specifically work with women right now is they feel really called to do that. Like, there are a lot of men that follow my life, or they'll hit me up in my DMs and say, I know that you always say, hey, women, in your post or whatever, but I'm following you. Like, I'm listening. I'm picking up what you're putting down. And I love that. And I admire all the amazing men that, that my messages speak to as well. But I feel like there's not enough people advocating for women. And so that's why I feel really called and drawn to do that. I do some consulting for some Fortune 500 companies, and typically the CEOs are usually male. And so when it comes to my C-suite work, working with people in that corporate level, they are typically men. And so I do work with that. I just don't do any like group coaching or anything like that. But I have had a lot of guys ask me for a men's retreat. Like, do a men's retreat. Like, they have so much FOMO when they see all of these, and even some of the husbands are like, when are you going to do one for us? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. No, that's good. So if people wanted to connect with you, where can they connect with you?
Yeah, so they can connect with me. I'm Shannel Rivera on Facebook. I answer my own private messages. I pride myself in that. People think I'm crazy, but my messages are always open. I really try to be available for people so that if they need anything. And then I have 2 groups on Facebook. One is called the Beautyandhustle Think Tank. It's really, for women in business. There's men in there too. But, people in business that want any types of tips and tricks and that kind of stuff. And then #Beautyandhustle is my Facebook group that started off as a makeup group, turned into an amazing sisterhood. And then I'm Beautyandhustle everywhere. So Instagram, TikTok, and then my website, Beautyandhustle.com.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
You've given us a lot of great tips, nuggets, just so many different ideas. And truly, I can see that you are a person that has been able to overcome so many different obstacles, and you've been able to learn from those and apply the teachings that you got from that. So what would be one thing that you can tell our listeners and viewers in terms of what they can do if they're going through a challenging time and they can overcome that?
Yeah. The best way to overcome a challenging time is to really sit down with it and ask yourself, what is the lesson I'm supposed to be learning right now? Because, if we all have that one friend that goes back to the ex, right? And goes back. And then maybe she finally leaves and she gets a new boyfriend and he's the same kind of piece of work, right? It's because we're not learning the actual lesson that the universe is like putting in our face. And I honestly feel like this whole pandemic, all of us being stuck at the house, Mother Nature kind of healing itself. I feel like this is kind of a smack in the face from the universe going, hey, I've been trying to teach you guys this for a long time and nobody's listening. So what's the lesson that this is trying to teach us? And I feel like right now with the pandemic, it's really about what is really that important. Was your job really that important? Or is it your family? Is it your home? Is it, the way that you take care of yourself and make sure that you're healthy and those kind of things. So that I would say that's the number one thing. And when I was younger, I wish somebody would have taught me that, because I was angry for a long time. Like life isn't fair. This, all this bad stuff always happens. And it's like, pendeja, like it's happening to you because you're not learning from it. You're it's going to stick you right back into that cycle until you're like, oh, I'm not supposed to put my hand on the stove. Oh, okay. Right. So I think that that's the most important thing. If you feel that way, this is happening for you. This crappy situation is happening for you. And I know that you could roll your eyes at me right now if you're in it deep, right? But what's that lesson? Is it, hey, I need to have a backup plan. Hey, I need, whatever the lesson may be. But I feel like that's the most important thing that I ask myself when stuff starts to kind of get derailed.
No, yeah, I love that. I really love that, and I love your sass. Definitely something for people to really embrace and contact and all that stuff. Shannel, you've given us so much great information. I really enjoy our time here. Is there anything else that you want to tell our listeners and viewers?
No, I mean, I've had a great time. I hope that you guys realize that, the most successful people, this is what I didn't realize in poverty, right? You see people, growing up in LA, you see Beverly Hills, you see celebrities, and you're kind of immune to them. You just like whatever, right? Is that most of those people have worked their ass off in silence. You don't realize it, There's no such thing as, an overnight success. There's people out here grinding that have been through so much. And it's funny because I always say, I wonder how some people look at me now, right? They look at me and they see my car or whatever. And I wish I could put like a bumper sticker on my head. Like I have went through the gig, like guys.
Right.
I'm one of you, just a little further ahead for now, right? And so I hope that you guys realize that you really can overcome anything, and that the more bad things that happen to you, the stronger and the more badass that you can become. And so really use that as a superpower and overcome that, and don't fall victim to your circumstance. Like, I could statistically have become, a drug addict and like hanging out with gang members for the rest of my life and a teen mom or whatever. And I never wanted to be a statistic, and you shouldn't either. So, be that person that breaks that mold and shows other people that are going through it that you can overcome anything.
I love that. I really love that. It's a good way to definitely live that message, and definitely, again, you can do so much for yourself. So Shannel, thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed our time together, and so thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, and for the rest of you guys, please do me a favor. Make sure you comment, like, share this podcast. Please check out Shannel, connect with her, and I will definitely want you to come out here and leave your comments. And if you got anything great to say, please say it. If you don't have anything great to say, please say it, because it's going to help us become better for you. Until next time, I'll see you at the next episode. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you tuned in to this podcast. You can find me at Spreaker.com, where you can like and subscribe. And to learn more about myself and my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at Facebook under Cesar R. Espino. Once again, thanks for joining me. I am looking forward to having you at the next episode, and know that you truly can overcome anything.